This is Rock and Roll Grad School with your hosts, Heidi Hedquist and Luke Poling. Why are we here? 'Cause we're here. Roll the bones.
Hello, kiddies. We are going to have a good time together because we're first in line for last in line.
I mean, that's the way to be.
Jericho, the new record by them, is out on Friday, March 31st. And we are talking with the bassist from the group. So this band is the remaining members of Dio, who decided they enjoyed playing with each other.
I mean,
and after Dio was no mas, they still wanted to keep going. And this is like their third or fourth record, and they're all over the place.
awesome.
I mean, not just because Vivian Campbell is in Def Leppard and is quite literally all over the place.
Yeah.
But it's well, I mean, he is all over the place.
Yes.
But in talking with Phil, it was trying to arrange everything in their schedules because he is otherwise spoken for much of the year. But it's interesting because it's just four people who they've reached this level of like success, and they've been in enough bands where they know what they don't like dealing with and what they're good at.
Yeah.
And it happens to be this great assortment of four fellows who have figured out, I'm not good at this, but you are. And it just sort of seems like in talking with him, which unfortunately you were not able to join us, to your great dismay, but like, is that you or is that me?
Got our wings. I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah. Is there
it was a meeting notice.
somebody got their mighty wings?
Somebody got their mighty wings. Yes.
But you just look at them and go, why don't more bands do this? And just say, well, you can do this, I'll take care of this, and we won't worry about things. It just seems like a lot easier way to go about it. And they just focus on hanging out and writing songs together.
That's like the secret to it all, right?
I think these folks have got it figured out.
Yeah.
To which maybe they should be called first in line.
Maybe. Or maybe last in line is the best place to be. Like you get rid of all the riffraff.
Yeah, you really do kind of winnow down the pool of folks.
Mm-hmm.
I sent you the article about the Depeche Mode tribute bands.
Yes.
And the big fight that there are 7 of them in Los Angeles, which is
the way to like make the 2 that we're fighting here seem not so crazy.
Oh my God, that's small potatoes.
And yet prove that all cover bands from the 80s are crazy.
Yes, but my favorite little tidbit from that story, did you see the name of the company that books tribute bands mostly in Los Angeles, but they do nationally as well?
I'm forgetting it.
Music Zarconia.
Yes.
Which is the greatest name ever, I think.
It is a fantastic name, for sure.
And it's fascinating. I went to their website, the number of acts that they book, that it's a wide array of performers who look like other performers.
I mean, it is a burgeoning biz.
And even though they misspelled Joe Cocker's name and added an extra R, I still think they're probably right up there.
Yeah, I get that. For sure.
You know, because I mean, they are so beautiful. You know what I'm saying?
Well, they just needed some help from their friends.
Yeah, just lift
or
up.
Maybe they were getting high with their friends.
Yeah. I mean, wherever it is, they're up where they belong, is what we can say. Right?
Look at that.
Full circle.
I mean,
should I just take a bow?
Gods have shown us the way.
Doing well, thank you. Doing very well. Just a little, busy as is everybody, which is a good thing, I suppose. You know, complaining about it for the last 3 years.
It seems like you guys have been very busy. You have the new record coming out, there's the EP, the tour. You guys have really been at it for the past run
here. Yeah, we have. I think, part of it was a bit of a backlog going into the pandemic, and so we knew we had some work that we had to finish, and we also wanted to do some new stuff as well, and make sure that we had something that we could work on during that time that we were locked down, so that we would actually have a little bit of a pipeline of things that we could sink our teeth into when we started. What we didn't want to do is come out at the end and say, okay, well, we're all ready to go, but now we can create something. And so, I don't know about you, but I was sitting around here trying to scratch my head, trying to think of things to create for about 3 years. So
Yeah. So did you guys just all go in with a bunch of ideas and kind of throw them together, or does everyone have their own songs that they sort of go like Follow Me Boys?
if you're talking about the new album, then we knew that we had to start doing a record, and just before the pandemic, it was January, I think. We had this harebrained idea of going to a studio because we happened to be in LA, and maybe putting a couple of tracks down. We'd had a couple of ideas that we jammed, and lo and behold, we actually ended up putting down in 3 days. We put down 6 backing tracks, and we thought, okay, well, this is cool. We'll come back and revisit it. And during the time that we were locked down, we were able to really work on those ideas. And those 6 were done almost as one batch. And then we got together when things lightened up a little bit, and went in and cut another 6 tracks. And that's how we got the.
So if I'm reading the liner notes right, this album was kind of recorded almost direct to tape before you and Vivian playing together. Is that correct?
Well, that's the way we usually try to work. Certainly, as far as the backing tracks go, that is indeed what we do. So we do, of course, we have to do some overdubs. We have to do some work on top of it. But we try to catch everything as live as possible. Not just in the recording process, but also in the writing process as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's when I joined the band, Viv was quite clear to me, and I said, well, I'll get some ideas together. I'll bring in some things. That's how we usually work. You'll go through and you'll say, okay, I've got these few ideas, just so that we don't end up, looking at each other,
staring at you,
like pregnant goats. What do we do now? And he said, no. He said, the whole spirit of Dio and what we've tried to keep going through this band is the idea that we come in with nothing at all, except for a desire to sit down and play music with each other, and we'll just see what happens. And I thought, well, that's a really organic way of doing things. I mean, it's really an idealistic way of doing things, because that really is the essence of 4 guys being in a room at one time. That's the reason why we are a completely equitable band in that regard, because that is exactly what happens. We sit there and somebody says, well, that was cool. Let's do that again. And let's play on top of that. Let's work this idea. What would work well after that? And we come up with another section. And, before you know it, we sort of worked our way through, the structure or the framework of a song. And I wish more people did that. I mean, it's so refreshing to me. I love working.
In some ways, it sort of seems like for both the recording and the writing, like, I think you could do it another way if you really want everyone's to do it. If you want it to sound like that organic thing that happens between a group of musicians, the only you can do is if you're looking the other players in the eye and having that kind of that communication that might be mental, that might be musical, that might just be something in the ether. Like, you've got to have that combination you can't get otherwise.
Combination, Luke. It's also that the fact that when you work on your own, as much as you try to avoid it, you find yourself repeating the same ideas. We have the same group of influences, and I'll hear a certain chord progression, or I'll hear a melody line, or I'll hear something, and my instinct will direct me in this direction over here. And that's probably because of we sort of develop patterns as humans creatively, and so that seems like a very obvious way for me to go. Oh, I'll go over here. Yeah, that sounds pleasing. Maybe it reminds me of something I might have heard decades ago and that I happen to like. And so I'll find myself repeating. The same sort of directions. Now, when you work with 2 people, now all of a sudden you've you've got somebody else saying, well, hang on a second, why don't we go in that direction? I've never thought of that before because that's not part of my pattern. So you now have two options. You put people in the room, you've now got 3 to the power of 2 ideas, right? And
Yeah.
4 people is 2 to the power of 4. So what is that? One of 16 different directions.
I went to art school. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So my point being that you have all of a sudden you are taken in directions you'd never thought of before, and that's where the sum of the parts is greater than just the individuals.
Do you think this lineup and this kind of combination of players, you've all been in other bands before, you've all those, you have the experience. Has it changed that working relationship between the 4 of you because you've seen how it can go wrong in other ways? And it sort of seems like a very even keel ship for the most part. Or are you guys just really good actors? And
Oh, we hate each other.
yeah. Oh, okay. There we go. Perfect.
Ripping each other's hair.
Wonderful. Yeah.
We all went to acting school, and then we learned how to look. No,
Yeah, there's definitely some Adler in there. Yeah.
Joking aside,
Yeah.
I think, I hate to put it this way, but we've been around a bit. I hate admitting I'm over 21, but it's hard to believe, but I am over 21, and
I don't believe it, but
but somewhere I think we've sort of gotten a little more. A lot of things don't matter as much. You focus on the things that do matter, and you're willing to let the things that don't matter go aside. It's not worth getting too involved in. And I think the things that matter are the fundamental things of what we create. The little differences that we may have over a musical idea or over even any other idea. It's you just say, okay, well, that's cool. You trust the people that you're with, and so everyone's making decisions to move the boat in one direction. And sometimes it's nice to be able to just say, I'm not going to take the lead on this one, so and so will take the lead on this idea, and naturally I think we sort of naturally veer towards the subjects that we have a lot of strength, in which we have a lot of strength. That's really bad English. But so for example, Vinny happens to do very, very well with any affairs of our touring, any things like that. Andrew is terrific with anything to do with graphics. I'm really good with things to do with business, and Viv's just good at being Viv.
Just hanging around.
So naturally, we sort of veer towards the things that we have an affinity for, and say, I'll cover this, guys. I'll take care of this, and it's so nice to be able to work that way because we have some great talents in this band.
That's it's on one way it seems like the easiest thing in the world to go, oh, you're better at this, you do this, and I won't worry about it. Yet it seems like this is such a novel concept in this form of music, in rock music in general. The idea of everybody sort of like going, all right, well, everyone's good, we're all equal, cool, let's move on to the next question.
Yeah.
Is it something, I'm assuming the 4 of you look around and kind of feel blessed that you found each other, that you were able to connect in this way, and that you have 3 other guys, like you said, in the same boat, rowing in the same direction.
I think we're very fortunate. It's always a blessing to find people that you work well with, and whose opinions you respect, and whose talents you respect.
But if you had to name one person whose talents you didn't respect as much, who are you thinking out of the 3? Viv's kind of
in the band,
dragging you down. Who's the dead weight?
I don't see it that way at all. I really don't. If there was, I would say, oh, I don't think he's. Listen, some things, Vinny is not particularly good at graphics. That's not that he's bad at graphics. He does have merchandise. Andrew is particularly good at graphics, and I think he's got a background in graphics, and that's probably why. I've got a background in engineering and audio engineering and in business and stuff. So I sort of, for some people, I'm sure you're aware, there are some jobs that you would go to an enormous extents to not have to do. I mean, things that,
Right.
whatever it is, I absolutely don't like doing this particular thing, and I'm very relieved to have somebody else deal with it. The idea of planning travel is completely abhorrent. I'd rather have an attack of hemorrhoids.
Yeah.
I could travel, but it's but somebody else finds pleasure in doing that, and really that's the way of the world. I mean, we're all individual, we're all unique, and when you get people together that complement each other, it doesn't get much better than that. So
Yeah, it seems perfect
yeah,
in that regard.
yeah. The only thing that's not perfect is that we just, we have to work with a very tight schedule, and you know, obviously Viv's in Def Leppard, so we have to kind of play peekaboo around the Def Leppard schedule, which has been since day one. I mean, it's been understood. I mean, that's the way it has to be, and honestly, we get a tremendous amount of positive traction from that connection as well. So it's not a complaint. It's just the way that it is, and that's
Yeah.
really the toughest part. We really try hard to find those times that we can play, we can do shows, we can get together, we can work. And I mean, I got to take my hat off to Viv, because he's on the road traveling around in planes and doing shows, and he's back home for 15 minutes. He's like, okay, when do we get into a stinky bus and go drive and do some gigs? And he's so gung ho for all of this stuff. So I'm very grateful for that attitude that he has.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you have plans to take this record out? But I know Viv's probably spoken for a huge chunk of the summer,
Yeah,
I
but
believe.
we'll find time. Well, I mean, we've got some dates we're putting together after March, April, May, that kind of time. We've also got time coming up in September, and that's how we have to do it. But I also know that if all of a sudden something gets cancelled, he'll be the first person to pick up the phone and say, "Hey, I got an extra week. Let's see, let's call the agent. Let's see if they can slot something in there." He just loves to play, and I think we all do. I mean,
Do you guys need much rehearsal now?
no,
Just
it's not
throw the gear up.
not because we don't want to. It's just we don't have as much time. But we're at a very a good level in our playing, where when we do get to rehearse, it's really just make sure we know how we're starting things, how we're ending things, and the rest of the time we listen a lot. That's
Mhm.
something that I think you learn with age, and in doing what we've been doing. I've been doing it for decades now. Now, at first, your mentality is, geez, I hope I can get through this and not make a mistake.
Right.
Be it in a recording session or be it in a concert, you don't want to make a mistake. You don't want to let anyone down. And later on, it's more like you take that for granted, and it's like, gee, I hope I can really hear what everyone's doing. We can come up with something really unique and make everybody a better player, because that makes me a better player. So really, what happens is we spend a lot of time listening. And when you first start out, you don't listen so much. You're focused on what you're doing. You're not really watching. You're not listening. And watching and listening is where the magic happens, because somebody will do something. Maybe it's intentional. Maybe it's not. Maybe they'll make a mistake and they'll go somewhere and, oh, well, that sounded cool. How about I sort of follow on what that person was doing? I have a stack of just about every Led Zeppelin show they ever did, recordings of them. And it always amazes me how different each track is from one day to the next. And when I worked with Jimmy one time years ago, and I asked him, how much do you rehearse? Sort of the same question you asked me.
Yeah.
He said, well, we're willing to jam. I mean, once we get going, we'll see where it goes and see what happens. And I think they did that on a regular basis. I don't put words in anybody's mouth, of course. It's not my place to do so. But when I listen, as a listener, as a fan, that's kind of what I hear. I hear experimentation. I hear, well, let's see where this goes tonight. Let's see what happens here.
Yeah.
And it's a way we sort of try to work in Last in Line as well. I mean, there are hot points in the songs where we'll just go off. See what happens.
How long did it take the group to kind of reach that point of that communication? Because I know you're the most recent member with the passing of the former bassist, so you kind of were walking into, in some ways, a ready-made, very much a ready-made group, but to come in and bring your own skill set and ideas and all of that. How long did it take till you guys all really felt like, okay, we've got our own groove now, we've got our own thing?
When Jimmy passed away, I was asked to come in and really just, they had some commitments to some live shows. And so I was asked if I wanted to do those shows. And that's really about as far as it was going to go. It
Mhm.
was during those shows that we were playing on the road that we started to sort of look around and realize that there was definitely a good team here, and there was a band that could develop some traction. I love analogies, but it would be like having a restaurant, and then one of the key people in the kitchen all of a sudden is not there. You
Yeah.
got somebody in to finish a shift or two, and then you start to realize that it's all working, the machine works.
Mhm.
And so it we made a case to continue the band, and carry on. So that's sort of what happened.
Yeah, how long does, because it's such an interesting thing, because were all of you at the same time kind of going like, all right, I'm feeling something here. I think we've got something special. Was that pretty instantaneous, or did it take a little bit? And who was the first person to say, I think we should keep going with this?
I don't remember. I do remember that there was obviously a record company commitment. So at some point there would be an awkward question about, well, what happens when it comes time for another album?
Right.
And somewhere along the lines, I don't know who suggested. It might have been Viv. It might have been Vinny. Said, we should get in the studio and work on some tunes, work on writing some new material. And we did that. We in a little rehearsal room in Anaheim, actually. We got together, and that was that conversation I had with Viv, where I said, "Well, I'll dig through some ideas and bring some stuff in."
Yeah.
He said, "No, don't do that, and just bring a bass."
Has working with them changed some of your other work? Like kind of this combination of writing and everything else? Is that
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's made, once you've visited that way of working, it's a very nice, it's a very cathartic way of working.
Mhm.
And so then, of course, you want to bring that into everything else that you do, you know.
Yeah.
So I try to sit back sometimes and just say, well, either I'll work on something with someone, or if I sit back and just leave it and come back to it, you know, what would I do if I was in a room with other people? I try to sort of put myself in that position,
Mhm.
and and so yeah, that influences comes in. I don't know that I would like to go back to a complete band where everybody just writes their own songs, demos them, comes in, and we listen to
Mhm.
songs in a room, and we say we'll do that, we won't do this, we'll work on that, because that's just not. I mean, it's really just an extension of people's individual ideas, isn't
Yeah, like 4 solo albums on one
it? Right.
record. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an idea. 4 solo albums of the 4-sided EP. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, I'd like to continue working like that with people. It's just a great way to work.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, I know you've got, I think, another interview scheduled, so I don't wanna keep you too much off track, but thank you very much for your time. Really
Sure.
appreciate it.
Yeah, I've got a little
Best of
time.
luck with the record.
Not
It's,
too much of a rush here, so if we've got a few more minutes, that's fine.
yeah,
But thank you very much.
I'm trying to think, yeah, I mean, are there any tracks on the record where you're like, "This is the one"? What's your favorite on the album?
I don't have favorites on albums just because I'm so off mark with this stuff. I'll put money down on what I think are going to be the singles on an album, and I'm invariably completely wrong. And maybe because I'm too close to it. When you're working
Mhm.
on something like that, you're so close you don't know anymore.
Yeah.
But um, there was a song that we did on the album called Dark Days, which I thought when we were writing it, I thought, oh, this is going to be the smash hits on the record, and it's not even close. So I don't know. I don't know. Although, from a distance, I think I've got, good ideas of what works. And we did the EP, which was something that I was very heavily involved in, probably more than anyone else. It was my idea to do a Beatles cover, and I always, thought I'd love to do a cover song, and what better cover song than a Beatles track,
And let's do one of the hard ones too.
Yeah, let's take something that no one else has ever covered except
Nope.
for Jeff Beck covered it. May he rest in peace. I don't know if
Really?
you've heard that.
No, I haven't. That's interesting.
It's magical. You got to hear it. It's almost an acoustic. It's not an acoustic. It's a solo guitar, very, very gentle. And he does a fantastic job on it. Very few people ever covered something like that because you have to treat it with a certain amount of respect. The last thing you want to do is butcher a Beatles track.
Right. Well, and it's just such a emblematic track of theirs, as if all the other ones aren't. But like, it's just so people point to it as this high point in their career and this great, the combination of the writing styles, all this stuff coming together. It's got to be a little scary when you sit down and you're, essentially standing in those shoes going, all right, let's try to make something that, is our own take on this thing.
Well, when we just decided to do it, I had to create a map, which is a little bit like a template.
Right.
How the song's going to be, how long this is going to be, what's going to happen here, what are we going to do here to make it our own, what do we need to stick to, what can we interpret our own way. But fundamentally, the song, I think, is about as relevant as it ever was. Everything that's going on in our world and everything that was going on back then. Maybe nothing changes. Maybe it's always, and maybe that's why that song has such a longevity, because it is timeless. And so that was the one thing I think that really drew me to want to do that song. It's not necessarily the first song I would have jumped at, thinking of doing, but I said to the guys, I said, how about A Day in the Life? I know Vinny's a huge Beatles fan, so is Viv, and Andrew as well, but we kicked it back and forward a little bit, and I said, well, let me come up with this thing and this template, see what you think. And I sent it out, and everyone said, wow, it sounds great. Vinny said, I'm going to put some drums on it. So there he was in his studio, and we sort of piecemealed it together that way.
It must have been great to just sort of hear this thing slowly emerging from your
Yeah.
your roadmap of just follow me, and one at a time, it's just growing and growing.
Yeah, I mean, I have a hard drive with about 20 versions of this. So at some point, I'll crack it out and have a listen to it again and see how it evolved over time. But it was a good thing, and the record label was just really excited about it. And they're the ones that came up with the idea of the EP. We said we just did the song. We thought we'd just stick it out there. And they said, well, let's do an EP. Put a couple of live tracks and maybe sneak something off the new record, and that became the EP. And I still think it's really nice because, I mean, there are some people who I worked a lot with Greg Bissonette, and as you know, he plays with Ringo Starr these days.
Yeah.
And so I said, hey, Greg, I got to tell you something. We did a cover of a Beatles song. Oh, I gotta hear it. I sent it over, and he freaked out. He loved it. And I said, do me a favor, play it for Ringo, would you?
Yeah.
Let me know what he thinks. And he called me back. He said, oh, Ringo loves it. No, Greg, I don't know. That could have been true. It could have been true. I don't know.
I believe it's true. Just because what else can I mean, what else do you need to accomplish musically? You're like, Ringo liked it. We're good,
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I got, I don't know how, but Matt Mahurin graced us with his talent in that video, because we had this idea of something that was going to be as timeless and as fit perfectly with that song, and he nailed it, man. I love that video, and we're not in it, which is great, which is even better. It's just so, it just takes you onto this little dream. It's
Jericho by Last in Line is available this Friday, March 31st, wherever you get your music. For more information and tour dates, check out their website, lastinlineofficial.com.
Rock and Roll Grad School is produced by the Professional Production Company. Please be sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, because your impassioned review is just as honest as us standing backstage waiting to come back on for the encore. For more information, you can check out our website, rockandrollgradschool.com. And like everyone else, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Today's show is recorded and produced by Heidi Hegquist and myself from our world headquarters located on the second floor of the professional office building, centrally located downtown. Our reluctant executive producers are John Sauvé and Sandy Stone. Our willing executive producers are Rachel Allen and Randy Jeanette. Our intern is Zach Jackson. This one's for Philippe, Thanks for joining us. Good night, drive safe, and may all your favorite bands stay together.
Save